Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I had to think for a second, like it is Wednesday.
Yep.
um, but thank you for joining us if you're on call. Um, let's see, we'll give people a couple minutes to trickle in. If you're here, feel free to use the chat. Let us know where you're joining from, what products or services you may be providing. You never know, somebody may need your services in the chat. Today's topic is sustainability, and we are on the final of our series with Bank of America. So hopefully you were joining us with the last two series that we had. It was about capital and access to commercial real estate. However, if you weren't able to join us, those are on our video library at emsdc.org. So you feel free to go back and watch those webinars as well. Once again, if you're here, let us know in the chat who you are, what products or services you may be providing. You never know who may need your services in the chat. Um, I may personally need them. But yes, let us know where you're tuning in from if you can safely. We'll give folks like another 2 minutes or so. Nancy from Boston.
I have to do it again for everyone to say. I think I just did it to the panelists.
Yes. As Nancy mentioned, she is from Boston. I'm Brittany. I am located in Philadelphia. Um, so we may have folks from all over. We service all of Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Southern Jersey. However, we do not exclude any folks who need um, to hear or listen to this webinar, right? So if you know someone who can benefit from this, please feel free to share. And we are going to get started and be respectful of everybody's time. So today we have here, if you're not familiar already, we have Nancy Rosedale, who holds the position of Business Community Officer at Bank of America, where she advocates for diverse, multicultural, and under-resourced communities across Massachusetts. In her role, she promotes education and awareness regarding the various resources available to enhance entrepreneurship and facilitate access to capital through workshops, panel discussions, and speaking engagements. Nancy is the primary contact for the Greater Boston business community and collaborates extensively with local business organizations and nonprofits. She is also a highly regarded keynote speaker and leader of the financial literacy initiatives. Her main objective is to empower women in biopic and entrepreneurs in overcoming systemic barriers. So if Again, we're going to bring Nancy up and she's going to get started on this presentation. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to raise your hand if you want to get engaged. If not, feel free to use the Q&A chat box. We'll be monitoring that as well.
All right, Brittany, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Wonderful. Thank you for the warm intro. I also want to welcome Bonnie, Cassandra, Kurt, and Simone. It's likely that we're going to be a smaller group today, and that's fine with me. You're going to get 100% of Nancy Rosedale. It doesn't matter to me whether there are 5 people here or 500. So thank you for joining and investing time. Today we're going to talk a little bit about sustainability and what that means to you as either small or medium-sized business owners. Okay. Sustainability is a hot topic, as many of you probably already know. We're going to define, first of all, what is sustainability? Why is it important? And then what are the 4 R's of sustainability? And also, what can we do in terms of providing you with a resource and a guide to help you on your path forward? Okay. So please feel free to ask any questions that may come up. You can raise your hand, you can shout it out. We're a small group and there are benefits to that. So make yourselves comfortable and be yourselves, and please engage often and early. All right. So right off the top, what is sustainability? Why is it important? This is something that we didn't talk about 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Sustainability is kind of a newer term. And honestly, it's getting more difficult to run a successful business without being concerned about sustainability and operating more efficiently, reducing your operational costs, mitigating risks. Sustainability can also honestly create more business for you, particularly if you are first in your industry or your vertical to sort of go green and put a sustainability plan in motion. Sometimes when people are learning about sustainability, the first thing that they think of is, oh, wow, the effort, the money, the commitment to being more sustainable is probably going to outweigh the impact. It's probably going to cost me a whole bunch of money. And honestly, that is not necessarily true. Okay. So sorry for the the screen jumping around there. What we've learned is in terms of small business ownership and whether or not small business owners care about sustainability is pretty impactful. We've learned that 8 of 10 small businesses have already implemented different practices regarding net zero, carbon footprints, and just really becoming more responsible. And that's incrementally better than when we measured our small business audience last year at this time. So we saw 6% growth year over year. And some of the things that our small business owners are doing are pretty simple. They are focusing more on going digital and using less paper. That's kind of an easy one. They are establishing and implementing more recycling, more environmentally friendly routines and processes. Obviously, some of us have the opportunity to work at home from here, here and there, and that reduces carbon being emitted into the environment. There are fewer cars on the road. So when we reduce our transportation needs, even if we're taking a bus or not driving ourselves, there's still, some carbon being emitted out into the environment. So working from home has been a plus when businesses are thinking about what they can do to really make an impact. And then lastly, and this is probably the most challenging area for a small business, but really committing to working with more vendors or suppliers who are sustainable. Their practices, their behaviors, their activities are sustainable. So when you do that, even if it's incremental, you're doing your fair share of becoming a more sustainable company. And when I first started learning about sustainability, I was probably similar to you. Like science was never my strong suit. There was a big learning curve for me. But one of the things that I thought was pretty cool that I learned is that Bank of America was the first bank to set a sustainability target. And then coupled with that, we basically have two North Stars at Bank of America. So two things that we're focusing on. And the first is getting to net zero across the entire operational footprint. And the second is helping our clients obtain funding to become more sustainable. So in layman's terms, I believe there are 1.5 trillion with a T dollars allocated to help businesses hit their sustainability targets. So we still have $1 trillion left to actually allocate before 2050. So we're in 2025. That's 25 more years. So we're trying to do our share. And a lot of businesses might think, oh, I'm too small, Nancy. Like, what I do doesn't matter. It's just me, my husband, it's a small business, but it actually does matter. So we want to help small businesses and micro businesses kind of learn what they can do and what the benefits of becoming more corporately and socially responsible can have. And in the process of doing this, we always have to start by asking questions of the community and really finding out where they are. And we learned that almost 7 out of 10 measure the success of their sustainable initiatives. So that's a good thing. because in order to improve, you need to measure where you are today. And a lot of small businesses are deciding that they do care about the environment. They do want to leave a legacy. They do want to leave a better environment and atmosphere for their children and their children's children. And then 32% are starting to implement different practices that weren't around, 5, 10 years ago. And they're also saving money by doing this. So we've seen a lot of pluses. There's still a learning curve, but the good thing is 31%, as you can see in the right-hand corner, are telling us that they've actually increased sales by implementing these new processes. So there's definitely something there that I want to explore. So if you take a look at the slide on the screen, it looks like some of this information was what we just spoke about, but to get a little bit more granular with the how, there's more recycling. There's more limit of plastic or single-use items, particularly in our cafeterias. I can see that across Bank of America, corporate America for that matter. There's definitely more of a focus on energy saving settings, technology. Anytime we make a purchase at Bank of America, we have to go through certain sort of toll gates, has to be energy efficient equipment. And these are all good things. And sometimes you don't see the initial benefit, but we know we're doing the right thing in the long run. And we know that we're making an impact. And what we really want to do at Bank of America is kind of set the stage, be the example for all else to follow. And when we think about all else to follow, usually that includes bigger businesses, Fortune 500 companies, and so forth. But we do tend to focus a lot on the small businesses because we feel like that niche really needs the most support. But when you think about sustainability on a global model, the cool thing is that we're definitely making a difference. There were 145 countries that are now committed to sustainability and net zero by I think it's 2050. So that may seem like a really far, off into the future date, but it speaks volumes just about the ethics around leaving a better world for our children and their children and so forth. When you think about sustainability, you think selfishly about clean water, clean air, the air that we breathe, emissions, things like that. So while you may think you're a tiny little business and what you do might not add up or make a difference, it absolutely does make a difference. So I just want to remind you that this slide deck was built with you in mind. Whoops, my screen just went out. Love when that happens. All right, let me try this again. All right, hang on 1 second. My screen just, for some reason, died. So I am just going to reload it. In the meantime, I will continue to teach on a lot of cool things that I actually learned in a sustainability class just this week in person, right in Boston. And what I learned was that we have to monitor the Earth's temperature. This is all part of sustainability, believe it or not. We need to be at a temperature of like 1.5 degrees. And would you believe that as recent as 2014, we were as high as 6 degrees? So a lot of the work that we're doing is to get back to that 1.5 sort of range. And it's not easy to do, but in my studies, I've learned that we are getting there. While it's a slow process, we're definitely doing whatever we can out in the community and in corporate America to decarbonize the gases and to decarbonize the emissions that we know are out there flowing. So I just wanted to add that in as I am working on my tech issue and getting back to sharing my screen with you. Somebody can just let me know, Brittany or anyone else, when you can see the screen
We
and
can
when
see
it is. I want to put it back in slideshow mode, and I'm
Mhm.
sorry that happened, guys.
Of course.
So just give me a second to do that, and then I need to find my place. Here we go. So we're going to talk about the 4 R's. So like, what can you do today to make sure that you're doing the little that you can do which is going to actually have a big impact, if you will, on the community. So for whatever reason, it's not opening up in slideshow mode, but I'm going to continue anyway. At Bank of America, we love talking about what we call the four R's, the four R's. And there are really four core principles that allow us to decarbonize our environment. So we think about reducing, renewing, realigning, and removing. And what that looks like is when we think about reducing, we need to find ways to actually reduce our carbon footprint. So some of the things that we can do as consumers, we can actually upgrade our cars from those that rely upon gasoline to electric vehicles. Or if you're a business owner, you can potentially upgrade your fleet of vehicles to a fleet of EVs. And not only are you helping to reduce the carbon footprint, you're also going to qualify for certain tax credits, discounts, and even deductions at the end of the year when you file your taxes. There are also many, many ways to improve the interiors of your offices, your warehouses, your industrial buildings, just by way of upgrading your lighting, refrigeration, your HVAC, so heating, cooling, water heating, and so forth. And again, there are tax credits that you can qualify for. I know here where I am in Boston, there's a program called Mass Save, and there's one in the neighboring state next door in Rhode Island. So I guarantee whether you're in New Jersey, you're in Delaware, you're in Pennsylvania, there are very likely state programs, they're state subsidized programs where a company actually comes in and sort of takes a look around in terms of what you're utilizing in terms of producing energy. And there are many discounts and subsidies that you can take advantage of to get new lighting, new improved refrigeration, and so forth. So definitely look into that. And then we're also working on teaching how can you adopt carbon capture and carbon emission sequestration tech. So that's something that is definitely on everybody's radar. And when you think of sequestration, sequestration, for those of you who are probably thinking about the word, thinking I've heard it before, but not in this context. So sequestration refers to capturing and storing CO2 to reduce the concentration for the atmosphere. So it's sort of like we're sequestering the gases and letting them out slowly, so they're not all out in the atmosphere at once. And there's some legislation called 45Q, which you can research rather if you have any questions on that. So next up is renew. When we think about renewing energy, many of you are going to be familiar with these tactics. So it's thinking about how can we convert our energy to maybe using solar panels or fuel cells. What is the latest, newest sort of energy that's renewable that my business or my home can adopt. We're also committing to, purchasing electricity from renewable power generation sources. These are called PPAs. It stands for Power Purchase Agreements. So again, this is all brand new to us. We never talked about PPAs 10 years ago. So part of this is just learning the vernacular, doing a deep dive, sitting through webinars, and really understanding how is this stuff affecting my business and my vertical, and what can I do to kind of play a small role in reducing my carbon footprint and the gases that my business emits. So those are two key pieces: reducing and then renewing. And then up next we have realigning. So we think about realigning ops or operations and practices to lower what we're emitting out into the atmosphere. So you can implement, I think we spoke about this a moment before, different options as it relates to utilities, how you're generating and bringing in energy, electricity, and things like that. And then what can we remove? What can we remove from our core business practices so that we are 1 inch closer to net zero. We're doing our part in terms of making an impact on the Earth's temperature, um, the gas that we're emitting. And there are always things that are beyond our control, guys, where things happen out in the macro and micro environment, if you will. When I think about like the Ukraine war, we're still basically at war, and there was heavy energy emitted into the atmosphere because of that. It was a very energy efficient process. Same thing with the emergence of AI. We all love artificial intelligence. AI impacts all of our businesses. It's the coolest technology, but it's also kind of a drag on sustainability because it's so energy intensive. So those two things out in the sustainability context are two basically headwinds that the sustainability community is sort of battling. But then on the flip side, when we think about tailwinds, like what's going well for those of us focused on sustainability, the first thing that we think about is just consumers like us buying more electric vehicles. The second thing is trying to transition from traditional energy resources and transitioning to renewable energy. And also green jobs, those are a growing segment out in the economy. So just focusing more on sort of going green is a tailwind that the sustainability community is very excited about. And it's really important to sort of internalize all this information. I know it's a lot of sort of science and phraseology that we don't think about too often, but everyone's journey based on where you are as a company, your sales size, your geography, what kind of capital you have or resources, your journeys are all going to look differently. So just keep that in mind, and try not to compare yourself to others because again, it's your path that you're working on. And they always say like comparison is the thief of joy, and I highly agree with that. So I'm going to show you sort of a roadmap in terms of what you can start to do and really where your focus should lie as we move forward and we think about being responsible in the sustainability environment. So the easiest thing to do is to really just implement quick hits, quick environmental wins. Okay. So think about what you can do pretty quickly to make a difference. And I'm going to show you some ideas that we have. The second idea is to think about the benefits. What kind of benefits am I going to realize as a business owner, as a business in the community? Do I want to be first out there in my industry, in my neighborhood, in my community? And then how can I expand this impact? So, very simply put, what you can do tomorrow is to start using green certified cleaning products. Whether you hire a crew to clean your office space or your warehouse, or you're doing it yourself, that's an easy switch. And most companies today, if you're hiring someone, have already made this switch. Obviously, going more digital. What can we do to reduce like all this paperwork that we have in our offices? This is something that I think we've been talking about for more than a decade. And we're still guilty at Bank of America. We still do have enough, a lot of paper. So we are turning towards going digital with just about anything. So the next time you're in a local branch, instead of completing documentation when you open an account on paper, you're going to see that your banker will very likely hand you an iPad and you will do everything digitally or electronically. That's just a really small example. We're also trying to limit plastic throughout our organization, and that's something that you could definitely adopt as well. We definitely encourage recycling, composting in our cafeteria, throughout all of our call centers, all the events that we sponsor. So it's not just us that is working on being more sustainable, it's also our partners, anyone that is a third party, anyone that we're sort of going to market together with. It's really important. So I encourage you to do the same. We've also switched to LED lighting. So LED lighting is a lot different than the old style traditional lighting. So the old style is kind of on the more yellow side. So I used to look a lot more tan. But now that we're in LED lighting, I look in the camera and I'm like, wow, I look so pale. But I'm really not. It's just the LED lighting. And we also have some hybrid roles now where our associates can certainly work in the office if they choose, but we've given permission for them to work from home 2 or 3 days a week, depending upon the role. And of course, that is reducing our carbon footprint in the release of different gases into the environment because there are fewer cars on the road, buses, trains, and so forth. And of course, there's always a benefit when you put all kinds of funding towards making these large changes, going in a different direction. There has to be a win, right? There has to be some benefits. So when we look at the benefits of social sustainability, one, we've evaluated all the resources and benefits that we offer our employees, of which we have 210,000 across the globe. And there are a number of different programs. We've gotten great feedback from our associates. So we're definitely hitting on all cylinders and always taking things under consideration to see what can we do more? How can we be more sustainable and more corporately responsible to make sure that the resources at our disposal for our employees are the best out there? We've also worked towards establishing a better work-life balance by way of hybrid vehicles. We offer discounts on hybrid vehicles. There are tax credits that we talked about. So we're constantly trying to show our associates that if they act more responsible in terms of having that sustainable appetite, they will receive not only tax credits from the government, but financial benefits from the bank. I think it's $8,000 if I'm not mistaken, but it's pretty substantial. We also do a tremendous amount of volunteering. So I believe I probably have 8 or 9 hours of volunteering in the last 2 weeks. And anytime that we can volunteer with an organization that's green or committed towards sustainability, the better. We do track that, and we feel like it is our core responsibility to do so and to lead in the marketplace. We also encourage switching to electric vehicles if you can. We know not everyone has the resources, but we're trying to expand our impact. So meaning that we're trying to set that example for our third party vendors, our suppliers, our customers, anyone who wants to do business with us. We've also committed, as you all know, to supplier diversity. That is a huge kind of cog in our core responsibilities. We've also integrated sustainability into basically everything that we purchase, everything down to a simple pen, a notebook. Like this is from Bank of America. This is all recycled. We can't just go out to the staples.com website and purchase what we want. We can only purchase through one particular vendor, and everything on that website is via sustainable practices. So we practice what we preach, and I'm really proud to work with an organization that does that. We also have some prepared material and content for small and medium-sized businesses, which you can see on the screen. You can literally log into any of these websites that are in blue, and you'll learn about what we're doing from a global transformation perspective across the entire global economy, what we're doing at a macro level in the United States, and then also in the community that you all live, work, and play in. You can also see on our 2024 Small Business Owners Report, which is on the right-hand side, some of the statistics that I quoted you at the beginning of the presentation that kind of speak to how are business owners really feeling. When we put a survey in front of them, and we do this once a year, the survey goes out to 1,000 business owners, and we ask questions that are very sort of industry agnostic. We want to cast our net as wide as we can, and some of the questions might be like, how are you feeling about the economy? How are you feeling about job creation? What is your biggest fear for the year? What are your concerns? How do you feel about sustainability? What's your company doing to reduce its carbon footprint? And we collect all that data and we mine through it, and then we share it annually in something called our Small Business Owners Report. And that's where we really learn a lot about what our customers need, what they're asking for, has the landscape changed? And then we go to market. We meet with our product teams, and that's where a lot of new products are kind of birthed, if you will. So this slide deck and this topic was sort of birthed because almost 70% of our business clients said, hey, we want to learn more about sustainability. We want to learn how we can make a difference. How do we get funding? How do we apply for capital? What is Bank of America doing for the business community around corporate governance and social responsibility? So I encourage you to go there to take a look at how it may impact you. So as a recap, just remember that even though your business might be on the smaller side, it matters. You can start calculating immediately your carbon footprint, the sum of all the emissions that you're generating at your business, and then you can kind of understand like how big your impact could be just by making small incremental changes to reduce the money that you're outputting, take small steps to cut out on the gases that you're emitting, the cars that you drive, and so forth. Okay. So I'm going to open it up, Brittany, just to see if there are any questions. As I mentioned before, this is sort of all new information for a lot of people. We weren't talking about this sort of thing a few years ago. So we just want to do our best to educate where we can. If there's something that we can't answer, we can definitely get the research. We have a whole division at Bank of America allocated to corporate sustainability. So Brittany, I'll let you take a look at the chat and see if we have any questions or any feedback from our audience.
Kurt says very interesting stuff. I don't see anything in the chat or Q&A
Okay.
yet. However, I do know that there are some really substantial things that are going to be happening, at least in our area in 2026, which we are kind of gearing towards and prepping our small businesses for, or diverse businesses. So if you haven't been made aware, 2026, the NFL draft is coming to Pittsburgh, which is the area that we service. So you should have received, some information regarding that in your email. If you haven't, please go back and look. It would come from EMSDC and maybe in your spam if you did not see it. We are also, I believe, having the FIFA World Cup. I'm not really familiar with that sport. But I believe that's coming to Philadelphia. But what, to my understanding, these large functioning sports related events are also interested in sustainability as well, because it's a direct impact on the market that they're going to be in. So I definitely felt this was a timely conversation just to kind of get us prepped for that as well. I do see something in the chat. As a remote first company, sustainability looks a little different to me. How do I incorporate some of these practices for remote companies? And it's Simone, I believe.
Simone, what kind of remote company, Simone? What's the nature of the industry?
Also, if you want to raise your hand and be brought up, feel free. And you want to get a little bit more interactive, we can do that as well. All right, Simone. Hey, Meg, are we able to bring Simone up? I was trying, but can't really.
Well, if I can't talk to her, I guess I can try to answer the question because I do love questions. So thank you first off, Simone, for the question. So what can you really do? So number one, you just want to think about your immediate workspace. We mentioned earlier the lighting, your heating. I don't know if you're working from home or if you're working from if you lease space and you're working from an office. You'd have to talk to your landlord, of course. Then think about the vendors, think about the suppliers, think about anyone with whom you're doing business. Some companies do have a firm policy that they will only do business with others who are committed to sustainability. How do you police that at the level of a small business? That's a really good question. I know it's a lot easier to police when you're a Fortune 500 company. You have different legal areas and departments kind of dedicated to this stuff. I would just say, Simone, just the fact that you care about it and that you had the courage to raise your hand, ask a question, that kind of shows me your commitment. And I think your microphone is open now, it looks like. So if you want to join in and answer my question about what you're doing, I think that would be awesome.
Uh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
hear you, Simone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi. So I'm just starting out a very small business. I'm an engineer prior to, and I now offer technical
Oh,
writing services for software development companies, manufacturing companies, aerospace and defense. So I say sort of true to the more technical part of my background, and now I just translate the very complex information, business processes into something anybody can really
simple.
understand and
Yep.
comprehend. So the reason for my question is, and as you were speaking, hadn't even thought about that. I do have a co-working space that I go to, and I also work from home. And sometimes I feel like our bill gets higher when,
Yes.
in the winter time, have the heat on full blast during the day, whereas before, we'd be away from the house, at work. So I was just kind of curious if there are like smaller things or other ways I could integrate some of your the tips that you have for a very small business, and not having like the footprint of like a larger multinational company.
I think you could teach this class with your background, Simone. I'm very impressed. Wow. Wow. Well, I think we should keep it simple. I think some of the things that you can do are just reducing paper, as we said. That's kind of a no-brainer, like embracing more digital solutions, digital technologies, adopting sustainable transportation, adjusting your thermostat, as you've noted, you commented on. You can even do something simple like reducing the brightness of your screen. Now, not to the point like when you're squinting or anything like that, but some of us just leave our screens on overnight. I know I do. And all it's doing is kind of emitting. It's taking up more energy. And as an engineer, you could explain that to the group much better than I could. But the more I study sustainability, it's really small tweaks. So it's not
Mm.
like you need to wake up tomorrow and change everything that you're doing to do your fair share. It's really just thinking, do I need to print that? I really want to go paperless, so not printing everything under the sun. Maybe when you buy your next vehicle, maybe you talk to your CPA or your accountant and you learn about electric vehicles. Is this really going to help me personally? What is it going to do to my tax situation? When you are eating out somewhere and there are different bins, like at Panera Bread or somewhere, and I always get this wrong, so I need to do better, guys. But there'll be one for like compost, one for recycling, one for I don't know what. And I always stare at it and I'm like, where does this go? And I just throw it wherever. So I have made a conscious effort to not just throw it wherever, to actually be responsible since I'm leading these classes, and choose the right bin per se. My husband owns a bunch of different companies, but I'm just really proud of the most recent one that he's opened. It has to do with Mass Save, which I mentioned earlier. Likely where you are in your state, you have the equivalent thereof. And basically, he gets paid through the state of Massachusetts or Rhode Island or Connecticut to go into different commercial buildings and structures and homes and to actually look for areas of waste, whether it's converting LED lights or an old boiler system that is really, really taxing, the pull on the energy because it's so old, it's not efficient anymore. There are just little things that you can do. And the small things really do add up. But your point is not lost on me when you kind of think through a different lens when you're remote versus when you own an actual building and you are the landlord and you're responsible for that stuff. So Simone, with your background, I'm not sure that I helped you, but I think those are some good tips.
Yeah, I think too, figuring out, I mean, how to be sustainable within your business, but also how can we as business providers, provide that to some of the corporations that we service. And maybe, when we're putting our capability statements together, including that component in there, like, we provide X, Y, and Z, which then translate into so many savings and dollars or whatever that is. So I think as we're thinking about what we can do internally within our businesses, we also can be thinking externally, how can we provide to some of the other businesses that we're servicing or corporations that we're servicing as well.
Well said, Brittany. And lastly, I didn't think I was going to bring my mother into this presentation today, but I'm going to tell you something that my mom has been saying for years. Guys, go to your kitchen. If you're not using your toaster oven, pull out the plug. If you're not using that blender to make your smoothie for the afternoon, pull out the plug.
Mhm.
Especially when you're on vacation, the energy, the juice, it's still actually it's sort of live, if you will. You're still paying for it. It's pulling on the system. So I've learned over the years to prevent fire and also be a better corporate citizen to kind of pull out the plugs from anything that I'm not actually using. It seems silly, but these things add up. So if there aren't any other questions, I want to thank you, Brittany, for the opportunity to meet this great group. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself over the last 3 weeks talking about how to access capital, purchasing commercial real estate, and now a little bit on sustainability. So on the screen is my contact information. So if anyone has any interest in doing a one-on-one so we can learn about each other, I can help you with your businesses, whether they're new, existing, or ready to scale. I have 32 years of lending experience to consumers and businesses. And I was a business banker for about 15 years. So I'm not that rusty. I can still help you improve your cash flow, access capital, become more efficient. So look forward to hearing from you. And Brittany, I hope that we can keep in touch.
Yes,
So thank
Nancy,
you
thank
very,
you
very
so
much.
much. Thank you to
You're
you
welcome.
and Bank of America for providing this information. Again, if you have not joined our series for the last 2 weeks, those videos are up on our video library at emsdc.org. You have access to that. If you know somebody who is, trying to purchase or thinking about purchasing commercial real estate, that video is uploaded onto our website. Everybody should have Nancy's information by now, but we also have a regional contact as well. Her name is Sophia. So if anyone needs that information as well, please feel free to contact me. I'm going to drop my email in the chats just in case. But we are super grateful for this series. It has been provided for free to our diverse suppliers. Again, please feel free to share this information with anybody that you know may be interested. And we will see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Make it a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.